only on Bloomberg Quint.
Good morning. You're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I am Agam Akil. Here are the headlines. Asian stocks trade mixed after US President Donald Trump declares signing summit for imminent trade deal with China. The Reserve Bank of India floats a discussion paper on moving a large part of the bank's CEO salary to variable pay adjusted with any divergence found in the lender's account. Fortis Healthcare moves SEBI to arrest Malvinder and Shivinder Singh after they failed to return 400 crore rupees within the stipulated time frame. And HBCL will make way for Britannia in the Nifty 50 effective March 29th. Now, Wall Street stocks finished modestly higher on Monday on renewed optimism about a potential US-China trade deal and ahead of key economic data releases. Abigail Doolittle of Bloomberg News sums up all the Wall Street action in this report.
Stocks gained in Monday's Wall Street session, but at the end of the day, those gains were paired. The S&P 500 up by just a little more than 0.1%. The Dow up by about 0.2%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq outperforming up about 0.4%. But at the highs, by way of comparison, that Nasdaq up 1%. Now, initially driving those gains, a risk-on rally around the world. The Shanghai Composite putting up its best day since July of 2015 on trade hopes between the U.S. and China. And initially, that did drive U.S. trading higher. But as the day went on, commodities seemed to take a little bit of the luster off of the rally. The commodity index down about 1%. Oil falling 3.3%, its worst day of the year. Wheat down about 4%, its worst day of the year. Copper lower after rallying. All of this after President Trump said that oil prices are a little bit too high. But again, it's also a signal that perhaps not all traders are viewing a possible deal between the U.S. and China as a real risk-on deal. Many talking about it as priced in, baked in already. As for what did work on the day, we did have a nice gain for the SOX, so the chips index up about 0.8%, helped by the like of NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel. Lots of hope there, directed by China-U.S. trade hopes. GE up 6.4% on the sale of its biopharma unit to Danaher for $21.4 billion. And overall, tech did well, up about 0.5%. Some of the big gainers there, Apple, Microsoft, and Cisco. But again, on the day, mixed signals, stocks slightly higher, bonds lower. That would seem to be risk on, but when you put in the sell-off in commodities down 1%, little more of a neutral tone or nuances relative to the risk-on activity that did shape Monday's Wall Street session. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump said he was optimistic that a final trade deal could be reached with China and he would hold on to a summit to sign any pact, but cautioned an agreement may still not happen. Bloomberg's Enda Curran has all the latest updates in this report.
I think you only have to remember where we were as recently as November, when you had the US and China trading threats of tariffs and threats of countermeasures, and yet here we are just over 3 months later, and all the talk is about a summit at Mar-a-Lago between President Xi and Trump to sign off on a trade agreement. That's quite an about turn for what was flagged as one of the biggest risks facing the global economy. Now, of course, there are skeptics to all of this. Much remains to be seen in terms of how this deal is nutted out. But there's no doubt that where we are right now in terms of the trade truce being extended, that's a potential major lift for sentiment.
And on that note, let's take a look at how Asian markets are doing at this point in time. We have Bloomberg's Sophie Kamaruddin joining us live from the Hong Kong studio. Good morning, Sophie.
Well, good morning. This Tuesday, Asian stocks are trading mixed after trade optimism faded on Wall Street. Japanese shares fluctuating while the yen trades around $111 a dollar. And Korean stocks, they have swung to declines off 0.33% ahead of the second summit between U.S. President Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un to be held in Hanoi, Vietnam. Now, over in Sydney, shares are under pressure, losing 1% this morning after a 3-day rise for the ASX 200. And here in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng opening 0.5% lower after a 5-day advance. AAC Technologies sinking as much as 9.8% on its profit warning for the first quarter as the Apple supplier sees lower orders. And Morgan Stanley warns the worst is to come for for AAC. And on the mainland, Chinese shares in Shanghai are losing ground, off 0.33%, while the CSI 300, the large cap gauge, is off by 0.4%. This after rallying 6% to close in a bull market on Monday. So we are seeing some caution in mainland markets after the recent rally. Back to you.
Sophie, thank you for joining us and getting us those updates from Asia. But what do these updates mean for India at this point in time? Well, as far as the SGX Nifty is concerned, we're looking at flattish moves. And, well, the SGX Nifty is marginally in the grid at this point in time, about 10.5 points higher. But, well, when it comes to trade yesterday, strength resumed with the Nifty advancing by around 0.8%. The mid-cap and the small-cap indices advancing in tandem largely, well, if not a step behind. And, of course, while the Nifty banking index advanced by around 1%, we had a little bit of weakness in the PSU banking index. But moving on to your ADRs at this point in time, over 1 to 1.5% gains for Infosys, HDFC Bank, Wipro, and Dr. Reddy's. And in terms of some others, well, marginal gains for Tata Motors, ICICI Bank and Vedanta, but all of them ending the day in the green. Now, we had another 2,100 crores odd worth bought from FIIs. On the other hand, DI's selling figure was also reasonably high at around 1,476 crores on the net basis. But when it comes to your contributors, it was essentially Infosys, TCS, and HDFC Bank, along with a whole host of other private sector banks, which actually led the index higher. Now, coming down to your futures and options space, well, it is expiry, and we're keeping an eye on, well, how things pan out as far as February futures go. For decline there, Nifty bank futures too. Let's bring that up. Decline of around 3.3%. But moving on to your open interest distribution, it's a 300-point range. Nothing much has changed there. But what's happened yesterday? And this is where we're seeing a little more writing around the 10,800 put, considering the Nifty moved above that mark. Now, the VIX, of course, has come off to a certain extent to around 15.4. It is expiry, and the volatility index was much higher last week. Of course, the put call ratio also edges up higher to around 1.46, as does the banking put call ratio to around 1.37. And we've got, well, a whole bunch of stocks which remain in the F&O ban. Adani Enterprises, Adani Power, Allahabad Bank, with IDBI, Jet Airways, as well as Reliance Power. One stock does move out of the F&O ban, and that is PC Jeweler, so watch out for that. In terms of other stocks, we're keeping an eye on something like ICICI Prudential, Adani Ports, as well as Bharti Infratel and DC Bank, all seeing considerable increase in open interest. And in terms of unwinding, well, steel stocks, which were in focus yesterday on the back of one brokerage note release. Tata Power, however, sees a bout of short covering with a 31% decline in open interest, so keep an eye on that one as well. On that note, now, let's see what's making headlines across the globe. We have Sue Keenan of Bloomberg News give us the first word headlines.
Start with the latest on Brexit. UK Prime Minister Theresa May has bowed to pressure at home and in the European Union and will now support a delay of Brexit. Senior EU officials had suggested putting the split on hold, with May seen as unlikely to drive her Brexit bill through Parliament. Now, she's always resisted a delay, but has now agreed to back the idea to avoid a damaging no-deal divorce.
The less time there is until the 29th of March, the greater is the likelihood of an extension. And this is an objective fact, not our intention, not our plan, but an objective fact. I believe that in the situation we are in, an extension would be a rational solution.
Meanwhile, UK opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn has bowed to Labour Party pressure. He says he'll support a second referendum on Brexit. Theresa May has repeatedly dismissed another public vote, saying it would undermine faith in democracy. Now, the UK and the US are taking action to allay fears of post-Brexit disruption. They're setting up emergency policies to ensure derivatives trading continues in the event of a no-deal divorce. The Bank of England, the Financial Conduct Authority, and the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission are all promising a seamless transition, with existing deals carried over no matter how the UK leaves the single market. Meanwhile, oil plunged on both sides of the Atlantic. This after President Trump again tweeted that prices are too high. He also called on OPEC to, quote, take it easy. He's referring to the output cuts. Brent fell the most in 2 months, and the benchmark rallied on optimism that the cartel would go beyond what it had pledged and balance the market. Now, the president's intervention follows a price rally of about 20% this year, more than 20% in WTI here in New York, and that's due to production cuts from OPEC and its allies. Tesla is a big story, tumbling in late trading in the U.S. after the SEC asked a judge to hold Elon Musk in contempt for violating a settlement deal with the agency. Now, the SEC says that a tweet Musk sent out on February 19th about car production broke an agreement to have company approval before posting any social media messages that relate to the company or investors. Musk tweeted that Tesla would make, quote, about 500,000 cars in 2019 before stepping back from that level later. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Sue Kane, and this is Bloomberg.
The former billionaire Singh brothers are now threatened with arrest in the latest development in the former tycoon's long fall from grace. The latest is that Fortis Healthcare, the company they founded and once controlled, has asked India's stock market regulator to use its powers to enforce the collection of the 4 billion rupees the Singhs are accused from taking from the company. Those powers could possibly include arrest. The stock market regulator found that the Singhs had defrauded Fortis of about 4 billion rupees in October and given them 3 months to repay the money. But that time came and went, and they still haven't got the money back, so Fortis has asked the stock market regulator to get it back for them. I'm Ari Alstetter for Bloomberg News in Mumbai.
Let's look at the important stocks for today. Eicher Motors says that the entire workforce is reported to work at their Chennai facility with effect from February 23rd, leading to resumption of normal manufacturing operations. The estimated impact in case of this strike was production of approximately 3,200 motorcycles. ICRA downgrades DHFL's commercial papers worth rupees 8,000 crores to A2 plus from A1 plus, to which the company says that the rating action by ICRA is not merit-based at all. It has not taken cognizance of DHFL's intent to extinguish commercial papers by end of March and the fact that it is in advanced stages of fundraising transactions. Then Jet Airways clarifies that it is in talks with stakeholders to ensure that the company becomes current on its salary dues. The airline company also clarified that news of SBI mulling insolvency via NCLT to recover loan is speculative in nature. Then we have Adani Enterprises that clarifies on the news of its defense arm winning contract worth 2 billion that there is no such development as of now. The highest bidder to operate 5 Indian airports, the company's bids were higher than GMR, NIFF Zurich Airport, report by Airport Authority of India. Then we have ADF Foods. SEBI imposed penalty of 1 crore on company's promoter Bhavesh Thakkar, Priyanka Thakkar and 4 others in an insider trading case. Bliss GVS Pharma, the board approves to increase FPI limit from 24% to 74% in the company. Then let's look at the replacement in Index Nifty 50, which will come into effect from March 29th. Britannia Industries replaces Hindustan Petroleum Corporation.
Given all the data that is available, we think there's more than a 50% chance of a normal monsoon in 2019 because there is a devolving El Nino. El Nino is cooling down. So let's see.
Okay, so do we rule out the chances of drought or excess monsoon? I would say yes. If I were to draw a curve, the distribution towards drought and the distribution towards excess rainfall is limited. It is distributed between, the probabilities are distributed between below normal and a normal, and according to our calculations, slightly more in favor of normal than below normal, although below normal is also a significant probability. We'll be able to probably come to a better resolution in April. But how have you come to this forecast? How have the conclusions been made? Like what methodology?
You see, there is a dynamical methodology in which we use a global model and then we validate a global model and it gives out a forecast, a machine-based forecast, which sees what is the kind of forcing that the El Nino is giving over the southwest monsoon precipitation. The second is statistical. So the Indian monsoon is extremely El Nino sensitive. 60% of all El Nino years are drought, 80% are below normal, and there's a 0% chance of excess. Now, one of the impacts of climate change is that what used to be a default state of the El Nino, which was answer neutral, which is at 27 degrees Celsius, now hovers around 27.5. That's why if you see after 2000, and especially after 2012, we are mostly in a near El Nino year, okay, which is not a good thing. The difference this year is that it is a devolving El Nino. El Nino is going away, albeit slowly. Now that changes the hydrological cycle globally. So, and whenever a similar situation has happened in the past, it has mostly resulted in a normal monsoon. But it also depends on how quickly does the El Nino dissolve itself. And that is something that is very difficult to make out.
You said that devolving El Nino is not a good thing.
No.
What is that?
Evolving El Nino is not a good thing. Evolving El Nino is on the water. See what the principle is very simple. Precipitation shifts to where the waters are warm. So in an evolving El Nino, the Pacific becomes warm, rainfall in China and Japan increases, and rainfall over southwest monsoon goes down. Okay, in an ENSO neutral, the waters are warmer nearer the Indian Ocean than the Pacific, therefore the precipitation is on that side. So if the El Nino is devolving, that means there are other parts of the globe that will warm, and the waters will be cool. So see, the El Nino is Pacific is the largest body of water on Earth. If it is cooling down, then the heat gets dissipated in other areas where there will be precipitation. So the thing is that if the El Nino is devolving, then it's cooling down. Okay, that means it will not create, that much kind of precipitation as it will be in other parts of the world.
The failure is to the extent that the communication could not be sent across to the people. Because the government thought that the JHPC is constituting of all political parties, all student organizations, and many civil societies. So government must have thought that it is in the agreement with all stakeholders. So tabling in the assembly and discussion will not lead to any kind of such uprising. So I think that is misread. The government has not been able to understand that such violent reaction will come from the people. So that part, yes, I can accept that the state government did not comprehend this kind of situation. But immediately state government has corrected their position and they have already passed an order not to take up PRC in future time, never. So that order is already passed. Now the immediate duty of the state government is to restore normalcy and build the confidence amongst the people by engaging everybody, every stakeholder. That is the priority right now.
Mr. Rijijo, you are often seen also as, the face of the BJP in the Northeast. You're one of its most prominent leaders. And of course, the Bharatiya Janata Party has had amazing success in the Northeast over the last few years, winning election after election. But there is one common thread as well, and I'd like you to explain this to us. We saw strife in Assam last year over the NRC, the National Register for Citizenship. Then we saw strife in several northeastern states over the citizenship bill, which was passed in the Lok Sabha but was not moved in the Rajya Sabha before the term ended. Before that happened, there was again violence, large-scale protests. We have now seen a similar situation in Arunachal Pradesh with the PRC. And in all three cases, it's a fear of changing the demographics of the local area that have spurred people to protest. Is there a pattern here?
Yes, you are right. See, Northeast people are very concerned about the protection of the indigenous rights and identity, and with regards to linguistic, cultural, and their constitutional rights, which are being provided by various provisions and various acts. So people feel that any decision which is going to dilute their interest is heavily resented. That is why we are very clear that any decision taken by the central government or state government should not harm the interests of the local indigenous people, be it refugee issue or be it any other steps to be taken. We have to be very careful. That is why, you know, the Supreme Court had given an order that all the Chakmas and Hajongs residing within Arunachal Pradesh should be given citizenship. Despite that, we are able to explain to the Supreme Court that it is not possible to grant citizenship in a blanket, because there are many people who have come illegally and settled down there. So it is not easy to actually implement on the ground. So our plea, the Home Ministry for the first time had taken a stand supporting the will of the people of Arunachal Pradesh. So right now I feel that we are able to do anything which is in the interest of the indigenous people of Northeast. And for Arunachal Pradesh, in last 5 years, we have taken all possible steps not to infringe the rights of the people of Arunachal Pradesh. You remember, Tamanna, there is a law called Eastern Bengal Regulation Act. According to Eastern Bengal Regulation Act, even an Indian is required to obtain inner-line pass to enter into a state like Arunachal Pradesh.
Yes.
But the Chakmas, Hajongs and the Tibetan refugees were settled in Arunachal Pradesh a long time back during the Congress time. So I don't know how this Eastern Bengal Regulation Act were violated by then government by settling the refugees inside Arunachal Pradesh. But now, since it's a long time, our duty is to ensure that no further such illegal or unwanted decisions are taken by the central government or state government which runs against the interests of the indigenous people.
용도자 동지께서 타신 전용 열차는 당과 정부 무력기관 간부들.
Now, there's lots to talk about over the course of the day, and you will find all the live market action on Bloomberg Quint. There are also a few stories that you should consider reading on our website, bloombergquint.com. Here they are. The Reserve Bank of India has proposed a new set of rules for compensation of CEOs and the whole-time directors of private and foreign banks. If implemented in their current form, bank chiefs will see a larger proportion of their compensation come in form of variable pay and be liable for penalties if there is a divergence between bad loan assessment of the bank and the regulator. And in a joint statement issued by Jet Airways and Etihad says that two carriers are working towards finalization of bank-led provisional resolution plan for the debt-laden domestic airline. They express confidence that once the plan is implemented, Jet Airways would be re-emerged as a viable and robust airline to reclaim its rightful place as the airline of first choice for its customers. And that's a wrap on this edition of All You Need to Know. Stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint for more news and updates.